It is the day of the 2023 NBA Draft. Victor Wembanyama's heralding as the new king of the NBA. So I figured I'd go ahead and put this out. My big board up here in the corner and just kind of wing it and try to figure out what the draft looks like and get my big board opinions out there so they're set in stone. So with the first pick, this is easy, like 2003. We're going to take Victor Wembanyama to the Spurs. At number 2, you get that decision, either Scoot or Brandon. I've flip flopped on this. I think Brandon is the better fit, but and I think if you want to say he's the better player, you can say that and be confident in that. But I don't think fit is a crazy big thing because I think two ball dominant guards, it can work. So I think Scoot here is fine, especially if you think he's the better player. It should be a no brainer. At pick number 3, I think this one's easy too. What you just take whoever they don't pick between Scoot and Brandon. I mean, if you had a draft grade on someone like Amin Thompson, maybe one of the three bigs, I could see you going there. But to me, I'd take Brandon here, and I'm gonna try to do the mock draft realistically, not just go off my big board. I go off what the general conception of what we think teams are gonna do here. But I do have some takes on my big board that are different than a lot of people. I'm not as high as the Thompson twins. I'm very high on a couple players that are just first fringe guys, and I see them as top lottery guys. So I'm gonna try to include those and try to go off general consensus and just kind of mix it a little bit. But I'll be doing a bit of a mix here at the Rockets. I think they're gonna take Amin Thompson. I wouldn't take Amin Thompson here. I just don't see. You've seen a lot of guys like Tyreke Evans, and then there's guys who had athleticism and then they lost it due to injuries or whatever. You're seeing Russ now. I mean, I would see he's had a great career, but you could see that happen to another guy like a D Rose thing where he loses his knee and he's just not the same player. And also, I think he needs to develop shooting in today's day and age. That's something that those names I just mentioned, that was not near as much of a factor as it was with him. So he needs a shot. And I also just don't really like the fit on the Rockets, but I think he's a very Rockets pick. He's going to fit in with the culture they have. So, I mean, that one seems pretty cut and dry to me, even though it shouldn't be. This is really interesting here because I think they can do a lot of really cool things, and I think there's a lot of players. I don't hate Asar Thompson here. I don't really like his game. I think he's a lot like his brother. The perception of it is just it's a lot of athleticism, and I think that'll catch up with you fast when you think about the guys who are already in the NBA. They haven't played anybody like those guys, so I don't know if they're ready for that. I think all three of the bigs could make sense in one sense, and when I'm talking about these three bigs, I'm talking about Walker, Hendricks, and Whitmore. I think that you don't necessarily have to have a preference among them. They all kind of do different things, and they all do things at a really, really high level. So they're really interesting players to look at. And there's some guys you could throw in here. I think a guard would have to be out because they do have a lot of capital, and I'm not opposed to taking the best player here, but I don't think the best player here is a guard. I think it's one of these three bigs. Let me double check my big board, see my opinion on this, but I do have Dariq Whitehead here. That's my personal preference. I don't think a team's really going to take him this high. I think I'm putting him here because I think when we look back at this, you're going to say this was a guy who had a bad college season. He had a lot of injuries, and so he fell. So I think that's going to be right. In my opinion, it's going to be right. He's a top 4 guy in this class. So when we look back at this in 10 years or so, but I really think it's between the three bigs here: Whitmore, Walker, and Hendricks. And I think the best fit with guys like Cade and Jaden Ivey, it's either Hendricks or Whitmore. And I think Hendricks is just a little bit better because he just provides, he doesn't need the ball in his hands as much as a guy like Whitmore. And he's a little bit better as a rim protector. With the sixth pick, the Magic, also a very fun team with all the stuff they can do. I think this one makes a lot of sense, though. I think taking Cam Whitmore here, I think he develops either in a second or third option, depending on how that hierarchy between him and Franz Wagner works out. I think Banchero, get him another wing who can run. It does make that three spot a little crowded for him, but I think there's a lot of different ways they can go here. They could take a guard if they liked a Black, a Wallace, but I think both those guys have a chance to be at their next pick, which is 11, I believe. It might be a different pick, but I say you take the best player available here. And to me, for what their front office will think, I think this is going to be Cam Whitmore. With the Pacers, point guard's off limits. You don't want to take a guy who's going to take the ball out of Tyrese Halliburton's hands. I think at this point, you think Miles Turner is going to be on this team because they haven't traded him any of the years he's been trade bait like he has. I think a really cool player here that could fit with what they're doing is Jarris Walker. I think if you think Anthony Black or Jason Wallace could become off ball, you could see one of those. I like Keontae George a lot. I think he could develop into a really good scoring weapon next to him. But I think there's a little bit of repeat with Benedict Mathurin, and I don't think they'd really have him as a top 3 player coming up right here. So I think the best player on their board here should be Jarris Walker, and I think that's who they're going to take. The Wizards, they've made a couple of trades. They have Chris Paul, except they don't because they just traded him a day after getting him. No, 2 days maybe. But so they have Jordan Poole now, which really means they have nothing. You look at this team, maybe they're still thinking Denny Avdija is still a part of their plan. Corey Kispert, they're probably not thinking he's a part, but I mean, don't see too many young guys. So they kind of have a blank slate here, and what I think that they should do here is shoot for the moon. So that could be a Nick Smith, but I really don't like his game at all. I think he's a fringe first-round guy solely on potential. So someone who I do think has a real chance of becoming a good player in this league, and has kind of become a little underrated. Keontae George, he plays a lot like Bradley Beal to me. I think he's a little more balanced than Bradley Beal. He's a little bit more athletic, and I think he had a bad college season, but he still showed you what he needed to show. So I think this is a really great pick for them. Kind of let him develop. I'm not opposed to a Cason Wallace here, or an Asar Thompson if you really think that he can develop those scoring tools that you would need. Those could both be good picks. The Jazz here, floor general, someone who can run it for them would be really important. I think you should take Black. I think you can maybe think that he's still going to be there at your next pick, but there's really no guarantee. I don't think they would have him as the highest rated player here. I just don't think that's a possibility, but if they do, then this makes it a home run. If they don't, I still really like the fit of Black on this roster, and sort of running the offense and also providing a really good perimeter defender. And he might not develop into that true facilitator lead option on offense, but the defense is there, and he's got talent to possibly become something. So I think he's a really good pick at 9. At 10 for Dallas, they're really hoping they get a guy like Jarris Walker or Taylor Hendricks. I think that's their main priority is one of them falls. I also don't know if they're going to keep the pick or the player they draft with this pick. I think it's one that we've all thought could be traded. Derek Lively might be the best defender at this point, but I think you're selling yourselves a little short. For me, I think there's a potential play you can make here that you can bet on Asar Thompson. And I think for a lot of people that say, he's free falling, I think this is about right where he should be, and I think NBA teams will treat him as such. But he could be a really good player next to Luka, Kyrie if they still have him. He's elite athleticism, and if he develops a jump shot, there's really not a ceiling to that. And I think that he can be a really good defender. He's got all the physical tools, so I like that pick for them. The Magic here, this is a no-brainer. I think he's going a little lower than he should. I really like his game. He's kind of come up late for me, but I like what Cason Wallace can do a lot. He looks like an NBA player. He plays like an NBA player. I think he's a high floor guy, and I think he does have a little bit of ceiling, so that could be a fun guy to throw in that mix that they have with Markel Fultz and Cole Anthony. They're really just looking for someone that's six at point guard, so I like that pick for the Magic. This is my team, the Thunder. I really like the idea of us taking Dariq Whitehead, um, and I don't know if that's biased or not. I don't think David Nwaba is on our team. I don't know why it says that. Maybe I'm just. I don't know why it says that. There's been rumors that Bilal, don't want to mess with that last name. I'm just gonna leave it. But he's got a draft promise in the lottery, and I think the Thunder is a team that likes to give out draft promises. But they like to find guys who are sort of just on the fringe, a little bit unheralded, and so he's really shot up draft boards as of late. Because also he's playing, or he was playing very recently in that Metro '92 stuff with France with Victor. So he's really gone up. I don't think though that OKC is the team that put it on there. If it were me, I would take Dariq Whitehead. I don't know what Sam Presti's thinking. I try to stay out of Sam Presti's head because he knows way more than me. But I'm going to say the pick here is Derek Lively. I think he could be a really good fit next to Chet. I also think he mixes well with a lot of the bigs we have now. And he's got a little bit of an outside shot, so I think he could be a really fun player on this team. The Raptors, I could see the potential play on Nick Smith. I could see Grady Dick giving them a guy because I feel like this team still thinks that they're a little bit competitive. Uh, and in my opinion, I think they have some really good tools. But you have a guy like Siakam, you have OG Anunoby, Gary Trent's a solid player, Scotty Barnes, very young player, very good player. Same thing with Precious and Jacob Podol. I felt like he was coming off his contract this year. Maybe he's not. So you really just don't want to take a four, but there's a lot of things he can do here. I like this pick though. I think he kind of fits with what they do, the whole sort of very versatile player. I think Jalen Hood Schifano could also be a good pick here, since I do like those tall point guards. But I'm gonna take Bilal here, and I think this could be where he was promised. With the 14th pick, this is interesting. I don't think this player will still be a Pelican. I think that this pick will probably be gone. Either they'll either trade up or they'll trade down. But they've had some bad picks recently. I was high on guys like Kira Lewis and Dyson Daniels, and it's obvious that they've been searching for this point guard player to set the floor because they have, three really good offensive players here, and you just want someone to sort of set that, but they haven't found that. And with guys like Cason Wallace and with guys like Anthony Black off the clock right here, I don't know if that sort of player's here. What I do think though is that maybe they're trying to address the wrong hole because I think that a lot of these responsibilities of setting the plays can be handled between these three guys, and I think Jose Alvarado can do a little bit of it. And I don't think they need to give up on Kira Lewis or Dyson Daniels yet. They could definitely continue to work on those guys. So I don't think a guard is the right pick. I think there's a big chance they still pick a guard, a point guard, but I don't think that's necessarily right. I would take guys who have some really good perimeter shooting or a center here. I think Derek Lively would have been a good fit for him. He's off the board. I'm going to say you take a guy, G.G. Jackson. It's a potential grab here, but I feel like they've taken a lot of hits that are swing misses lately, and I think that's sort of just a philosophy of the organization with David Griffin. So I like G.G. Jackson. I don't know if it's the best pick, but I could see him making that. At 15, the Atlanta Hawks. This one, to me, makes a lot of sense. It's just going to be Grady Dick. They like shooting. They've targeted shooting almost every year. They took A.J. Griffin last year. I think they're just looking for... I think they have an idea of the type of player that fits really well around Trae Young. It's shooters. They want shooting, especially with DeJounte Murray. It's important to have guys when Trae's on the court who can space for Murray. So I like Dick here, Grady Dick. I like Grady Dick here. Next up, at 16, we are going back to Utah. Utah took Anthony Black with the first pick. This is saying they're pretty good on the wings. I'd say they're pretty weak on the wings. I don't necessarily understand how they come up with the team needs severity rating or anything. But I could see him taking a big if a big was still here. I know Walker Kessler had a great year. I think that might have been lightning in a bottle. But it's really this 2-3 where I say they have the biggest need, assuming they take Anthony Black at 1 with their first pick. So, looking for a wing here. And I like this guy, Jalen Hood-Schifino. He is a point guard, but he's big, and so is Anthony Black. So you think that between the two of these guys, you can get one who plays point and can be an effective table setter for this team. And you also think here, both of these guys, 6'5", 6'7", they're not necessarily point guards or point guards' bodies. So there's a really good chance that you're also going to get someone who's just an effective wing, even though you're looking for a point guard. So I like this pick. I think it possibly takes care of both their needs and gives them a really good shot to, ensure that. Jordan Hawkins wouldn't have been bad either. I don't necessarily like Bryce Sensabaugh. And I think right about here is where we're getting to the Dariq Whitehead range. And I think he makes a lot of sense for this Lakers team. I think Sensabaugh is the one who is really linked to them publicly. And I think Jordan Hawkins makes a lot of sense because he's a great defender. And he's sort of known as being a great defender and shot maker. But I think Whitehead's the right pick here. Bufkin wouldn't be a bad pick either. But of those 4 guys I said, obviously I'm really high on Whitehead. I think he's going to be better than 56 other players in this class. So I take him here, no hesitation. And if I was a GM, he would have been off the board way before this. The Heat, they don't have like a serious need, at least that they can address with pick 18. But I think they have a tendency to find guys who have highly developed skills already, but sort of not well-rounded games. And I think that's something that really speaks on the Heat culture, that they could speak. They just look for these guys with elite skills and try to build the rest of them. But if they only get one, they're okay with that. So Jordan Hawkins, I think you're getting an NBA defender off the get-go, and I think he's an NBA shooter. So I like that pick for them. The Warriors, I'm not sure if they currently have this pick. I know they traded a pick to get Chris Paul. Leonard Miller seems like a guy who's been sort of fitting the mold of what they've been doing. They did draft Wiseman. They drafted Kuminga. Moses Moody wasn't as much of a potential play, but they are looking at guys with high ceilings. And I think Leonard Miller fits that role. Nick Smith Jr. fits that role too, but I really don't see a way they can take a guard. They have a lot of good guards. They need to develop some of them, and they need to keep playing their all-stars. So I don't think guard is a way. I think they'd love to find a center, but there's just not so many centers in this class. I think James Nnaji, some people might see this as a reach. He's kind of shooting up draft boards a little. I think he's up 10 spots in the last month, just the general consensus for people. So I like this pick. He's a versatile defender, and he's someone who's been flirting with the NBA, I think, the last 2 years. So I like this pick for them. Now we're going back to the Rockets. They took Amen Thompson with their first pick. I don't see a way they take another guard here. Looking at it, Leonard Miller kind of fits the mold of what they want to do. I can see Chris Murray being a pick. There's really no position here that you say, they just don't need more than the other. Shooting guard, you think Jalen Green's your guy. If they take Amen Thompson here, you think he's got the one locked down. And they did put some draft capital on this position, these two positions, in the last 2 years or so. Plus, I haven't even brought up Kevin Porter. So even though they took 2 4s last year with Eason and Smith, I'd expect it to be a 3 or a 4 here, probably leaning a 4, because I think they do have Sengun has a future piece for this team, but he could probably be a little versatile. I think 3-4, you're not afraid of a 5, but you'd rather have a 3-4. And to me, I think you're reaching on Chris Murray. I don't think he's really supposed to be taken this early, but his brothers played very well. You think he might have that same skill set. He's flashed a little bit of it. He's looked as a solid scorer. What they want him to become is just a solid shooter. So I like this pick for them. I like to think that they make this pick more so. At 21, the Nets. To me, this is where I've been talking about potential for these guys. I think I might have said it almost every pick. It's got to be one of these guys, though. And I think you look at that. To me, they just need to be developing someone, and they can be. So I'm going to take Nick Smith Jr. here. I don't think he flashed anything of substance this year. I think you saw it. I take that back. I don't think his stats showed anything of substance, and I think a lot of times he made the team worse when he was on the court. But there's glimmers almost, not even flashes, but less than that, where he really showed that he does have some gifts. He's an effect. He could be a really good table setter. He could be a good combo guard. So I think there's talent there, and I think Brooklyn is in a position more so than other teams to really untap that. And now they go back to back here. They could take Leonard Miller. I don't think it's a good idea to work so much on developing guys. I'm going to take Kobe Buffkin. I think that he kind of fits. They need more shooters. And I think he has some defensive upside. He's kind of, in my opinion, he's like a little bit of a discount Mikal Bridges. So I like that pick. Blazers here, they've taken Brandon Miller. This is a guy I'm really high on. I think he's the definition of a word connector. When you're talking about a guy who's sort of a tertiary playmaker, a little bit of scoring, a little bit of defense, a little bit of playmaking. So Colby Jones, I think, is an absolute steal in this draft. I think we're going to talk about him like he's the Jalen Williams of this year. And I won't be surprised if there's a GM who makes him a lottery pick, which is where I think he should go, in all honesty. So not that he will go, but I think there's some smart GMs out there who can see what he does. So I don't know if he'll be here when they do this, but he definitely deserves to go here and earlier. He could be a great player on that Portland team. The Kings, they've had a great run. Really just the beginning of the run. I think perimeter shooting could be a big thing. Not so much a need because they have a lot of it. Maybe a good post defender here. But you look at what affected them in the playoffs. They didn't have any bigs who could space really. Sabonis was hurting them. You put Keegan Murray at the 4, Harrison Barnes at the 4. You're a little bit undersized, but I don't think they're afraid of that. So I think a hybrid 3-4 wing with some shooting. Rice Sensabaugh is a little bit short for that. Jett Howard's a little bit skinny for that. But I think Sensabaugh, he has a little bit of weight to him. He's got a bigger frame. You put Murray at the 4, Sabonis at the 5. You feel okay with that lineup. So I think he could be a good fit here. And I won't be surprised if he goes before this. I don't necessarily think that would be smart, but he's a very talented player. He has some solid shooting. He way outplayed his high school rating coming into college here. And so he gets to go in the first round as a 4-star. And that's you don't see that every day. With the 25th pick, I don't know if the Grizzlies still have this pick since they didn't make that trade for Marcus Smart. Well, it has him here. So they might still have this pick. Looking at this, though, the Grizzlies are one of those teams. I mean, you don't take a point guard. I did not know Tyrell Terry was still in the league. I was high on him. That kind of shocks me. I just saw it. I did not think he was still in the league. 4 or a 5, you kind of put Jaren Jackson at the 4 here. Is what they usually do. But I wouldn't be surprised. 3, you see a lot of big needs. I don't know if Zaire Williams is ever going to be the guy I thought he could be. So this could be interesting here. I think Jett Howard's the right pick, though. I think he gives you a little bit of a high floor, and he kind of fits the mold of what we've seen. At first, they took a lot of guys a couple years ago when this administration first came in. It was a lot about potential. But with picks like Desmond Bane, I think that's a high floor. Obviously, he's becoming a fringe all-star, but not that I think he's ever going to be an all-star, but he's putting up, 20 points per game. But I think that's evident that floor has become much more part of their philosophy as they've got a lot more competitive recently. Now we have Indiana Pacers up on the clock. I had them taking Jarris Walker with their first pick. They can go a lot of different ways. I think Leonard Miller is a good pick here, though. I think he kind of gives them someone to develop, and I think that they sort of have a shortage at wing, so he's got some tools, and he could very well be an NBA player. I feel like he's been on draft boards for the past 2 years or so, and I've just kind of knocked him down every year because I just feel like the longer you're this fringe NBA guy, you're just not an NBA guy. But it seems like this is the year he's going to get drafted, so I'm really excited for him. With the 27th pick, we saw them take Scoot Henderson with 2, which I would say 80% chance I see them doing that in real life. That's what I would expect. So far, I think we see this team for what it's going to be. Um, I think you can't draft a guard here. I mean, I know you can't. You take a guard with number 1, you're 1 and you're 2, you're set. Unless you're just see a guy you think it's pretty solid depth here. Um, I think Jaime Jaquez. I like this pick. I think he's got some really good playmaking for a guy who you can kind of throw at the 4. Don't know if that's going to be something he really sees in the NBA, but I think in this sort of positionless thing, it might be a place where he could really excel. But even as a 3, I think he provides a good fit for this team, and he's sort of an older guy that should mess well with the current age of the team. 28th, Jazz. We've had him take 2 guards already. They could go a lot of different ways. I think one of these 2 wings would be a solid fit here. There's not too many great bigs at this point, but Trace Jackson Davis is a guy who I'm really high on. I think he was an NBA player last year. Honestly, with what he did in college, he's very physical. He provides some rim protection. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that at the NBA level, but he has a chance to. I don't doubt the inside scoring for a second, and I don't doubt the rebounding. So I think he could be a really good bench piece for anyone. I mean, I think he's an NBA bench player already. So you know what you're going to get, and I don't think there's a problem with drafting a guy just off floor and knowing that he might not ever really be something, really be like an all-star player. I think we should draft more players just off floor. 29, we just gave him Leonard Miller 3 picks to go. I think a bigger man would be good here. I take that back. No, sort of like a 2-3 wing would honestly be the best. And I like Ryan Rupert here. I don't. That's probably not how you say that. I just said that like Ryan. But Rupert, I think he's a solid player. He's got good perimeter skills, both offensively and defensively. And I think he's less of a product than people really give him credit for. So I think he could be an interesting pick. Now we're at the last pick of this first round. LA is on the clock. I don't know if they still have Marcus Morris Sr. But I don't mind the pick here. I like Kobe Brown. This is a little bit ahead of where I have him. I think I have him around 40 on my big board. But I think he played really well in March Madness. He gives you some spacing. And I think he could be an effective forward for this team.